Welcome to the Church Communications Podcast. We want to help you become a church communications expert. We understand it's a challenging and ever-changing role because we've worked in the church too, which is why we built a community of over 30,000 church leaders that are ready to support and cheer you on. Your hosts for the show are Katie Allred, Kenny Jahng, with special guest host from the church communications team. They're here to help you and equip you to better reach your community. We'll talk shop with practitioners, professionals, and communications experts about what's working, what's not, and what's next.
Welcome to the Church Communications Podcast. I'm Katie Allred, and today I'm so excited because I'm joined by Amy Sullins. And Amy is a photographer, also a social media strategist, has done some work with the church, and I'm really excited for everyone to hear her perspective on church communication. So, Amy, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Katie. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Why don't you tell the people a little bit about your journey in church communication? How did we get here?
Yeah, well, it's been a long story. First off, my husband is a worship pastor, so we obviously know a lot about the church world through that communication networking system. But also, I'm a photographer and a social media strategist. So I do photography work for churches, also small businesses, and then I do social media strategy and branding for churches that are in desperate need of that help. So that is usually where I come in and help churches kind of get a head start on the game. So,
okay, so your husband's been a media pastor, is that what you were saying?
He leads worship. So we lead worship side by side.
Okay.
Yeah, worship pastor.
Awesome.
Yeah, for 25 years.
Oh, wow. Okay, I found a lot of worship pastors have been doing also communication stuff, if intentionally, then very unintentionally, because there is just a need for it and there's nobody else doing it. Is that what you found too?
Absolutely. And thankfully, I'm his right hand. And so since this is my world, I'm able to speak into that a lot. But yeah, he does. At our current church, he runs the communications team and makes sure everything is up and running and ready to go for, each week. So yeah, definitely the worship pastor. I guess it's that creative mindset that
maybe.
So they put them in charge of it.
Yeah, I was just talking to somebody the other day, maybe it was even yesterday, I don't know, that was talking about how sometimes the best church communications people aren't creative, and then some of the best church communications people are super creative but not administrative in any means. And it's usually one person, and so either you have very creative stuff but not very organized stuff, or you have very organized stuff but not very creative. It's unless you can get a whole team, then it's usually one or the other.
Here's the great thing. I'm not trying to brag on my husband, but he is a very analytical. He is a 5 on the Enneagram, if anybody knows about that. So he's extremely he's extremely organized, but also creative. He serves with me as a second shooter on wedding day, so he does all this creative work as well. So it really does bode well for his personality to be in this kind of role where he's leading worship and he's able to achieve the goal from front to end, but also run a communications team and keep us organized and running, but also be a creative mindset behind it. He's kind of a rare bird. I call him that all the time because he does have a lot of those attributes, thankfully. So, but I'm more of the creative, I think, in our personal life. So I'm able
What's your
to speak
Enneagram? This is what I should be asking. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm a 3. And it's a lot. It's really
it is a lot
out here trying to impress myself. I'm not trying to impress anyone else.
It's
just
really
myself. Just exhausting trying to impress myself all day long. I know, right? Yeah, it's not.
You're just
really
gonna constantly one up in myself.
Yeah, I feel like with 8, or maybe tell me if you think I'm wrong. This has become an Enneagram podcast now, but I feel like with 8, it's really external validation, but for me, it's internal validation. It's nobody is more of a competitor to me than me.
I did this last week, so this week, this is what I'm gonna do. Totally, Katie. I'm right on board with you because that is exactly who I am.
It's the worst. It is so hard. People have no idea what it's like.
They do not.
that much. Yeah. It's so funny. We were talking about, we didn't talk about it on the show, but I talked about it in class. So I was a professor in my past life.
Yeah.
And I talked to the students about, there was that whole thing about internal monologues going around. Do you remember this?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
do you have it or don't you? I do too.
Right. I do. Yeah. I don't know. It was hard for me to imagine a woman that didn't have an internal monologue, but apparently there are women that don't have internal monologues. I had met like a couple students who were like, yeah, like I don't have a continuous story. I'm like, I have a narrative going throughout the day. Like
writing my own book in my head.
Katie did this plot twist.
I'm glad I'm not alone. I'm glad I'm not alone, Katie. I think you and I are probably very similar in our lives.
Probably so. We're getting to know each other just now. So for our listeners on the podcast, it's the first time we're meeting. So yeah,
I love it.
Same. I think probably a lot of people agree about. Probably a lot of people are. I feel like, especially in like the creative world, there's a lot of threes.
Oh yeah.
And because I think it just lends itself to it like naturally, but at the same time, I'm not like creative as in I am good at producing creative work. You probably are. I am creative as in I know what I like and I know what looks good, and
I want you to go do it.
To see that. Yeah, I want to see that. But I don't really want to make it myself. And so it makes me a great manager, but a terrible like individual contributor.
I love that.
It's so true. And like it was such a journey to get here from
you're like, it took me a while to understand who I am, but I do.
Of struggling through that. And so, which is fair, you know, I think we all have our journeys. Anyways, back to you. Okay, so what do you think? Okay, what do you think church communications means today to you, to the world?
What it means? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very important for the church world today, especially with everything going on in the life of the church and even the controversies going on in the church. I think it's so important to be able to express who you are, a vision. You know, a church without a vision is not alive. That's just basically how I say it. And so it's so important to be able to have that vision and be able to broadcast that in social media. When I'm working with a church, I always tell them, you think social media is for you. It is not a running bulletin of everything you have going on in your church.
Amy came here to preach.
I did, because I'm very passionate about this. Social media is for the outside. They don't understand that social media should be for your community. It's the people that you're wanting to draw in. So it's so important to tell them who you are, what you do, what you stand for. And I know it'll be controversial. There'll be times when things will happen, but at the same time, it is your standpoint on who you are. And if you're not sharing that actively, then you're not growing a church right now. I mean, social media is the avenue right now. I think we all know that. So, that's what it means.
You know, like nobody can hear my snapping. But yeah, like it's good. No, that's right. Like, we always like to say like social media is like the front door, right? It's like the wreath. It's like what you're displaying, and like really it's where you should be sharing stories of life change. It's where you should be sharing like exactly what you said, like what your beliefs are, like where you stand on things, giving some clarity around those issues. I find that being clear is being like loving, you know, and I feel like the less clear you are, the less loving you are. So like really like being as clear as you can be on where you stand. Who knows like where things change. I mean, it's great that, you know, churches change and like things change. At the same time though, like using this as a platform to really reach the people that you're trying to reach in your community specifically is what is really important. Okay, well, sorry, you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think communication as a whole is such an important part of being a part of a church in general. Like even when it comes to something simple like a pastor's email or or communication about what a change in the staff or a change in a lot of times we forget that is a large pivotal part about being a body. It's like if I were to go inside of my home and have a complete job change, but I never told my family that I was doing this. And then one day, about 6 months down the road, they're like, what job are you doing now? And I'm like, oh, I changed jobs. Like, that's exactly what that is like inside of the church. When you're not communicating, we're supposed to be a body. If we're going to proclaim that we're a body together in a family, we have to act like one. And that means communication. Because if you have communication inside of your home, which you should, I'll preach on that in a minute. But if you don't have that, you should also have it inside of your church. And I think that is just
so true.
An important, I think that's such an important thing that we're missing right now in so many churches. So
I agree. No, I agree. It's so funny. So years ago, when I worked at a church, they asked me to speak to parents on social media safety, which is hilarious because I am every parent's worst nightmare.
Me too. I'm like, let them have Instagram.
I'm like, yeah. I'm like, I don't know, like, let them do whatever they want, but like at the same time, have open and honest communication, and you're not gonna have to worry about like because here's the thing, they're gonna run into stuff that you don't want them to, but that's gonna happen regardless of how many filters you have.
They're either going to do it now, or they're going to do it in their 20s when all those little safeguards that you put on are broken off. Listen, I'm all for protecting kids. I have 3 myself. I totally understand that. I get the concept behind it, but if you're communicating inside of your home and you're looking, you're paying for that phone. If you're looking at it and you're constantly communicating with your kid about what they're seeing, then they're usually going to tell you. I know that mine have. Hey, I saw this today. Like, what is this? Or I don't like this. How can I change this from happening again?
Or this made me uncomfortable. Yeah,
exactly. And it's the same inside of a church. Like, I know that sounds so wonky, I guess is the word. I'm a Georgia girl, but but I think that's the key. I think communication is the pivotal key to church growth right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Church growth, family growth. I don't even have
all
kids,
of it.
I'm just like, I don't know, let your kids do whatever they want on the internet. It's so funny though, because like if my parents hadn't let me like be who I was on the internet, first off, I would have figured out a way. But second, I wouldn't be who I am today if they had watched me every moment of every day. So with that, they trusted me to know that I was going to tell them if something weird happened or if I felt uncomfortable, and I did, which is great. So anyways, that's besides the point. Back to church communication, not family help.
We've had an Enneagram podcast, a family help. Safety on social media.
A very comprehensive podcast, and I am here for it, and I think the people are too. So all right, so tell me, what is your favorite channel to communicate on with your congregation and why?
Okay, so this is my personal favorite is Instagram, because we have our young and vibrant part of our community coming in through that avenue. I think that's where the most of our growth is currently coming from. I think I'm able to use, I'm a stickler. I have a dog named Hashtag. So if that tells you anything about how I feel about hashtags, I love them. And I love creating systems that work for different genres and different avenues, for my own business, for the church. And so that avenue, in my opinion, has seen the most growth. We have grown just in the 6 or 7 months I've been growing this particular platform. We've grown by 600 followers, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that means that people are coming in from the community and seeing what we're doing. Yeah. But I would say that the church's favorite is Facebook.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, yeah, I think a lot of churches' favorite is Facebook, which I don't argue about. But what do you think? Okay, so if you could give anybody a tip on something you should be doing on social media right now, what do you think that is?
That's
Sorry, I throw you a curveball.
No, I'm like, hold on, let me think. Okay, this is going to sound crazy, but I think that if you're using, I'm going to go back to hashtags for a minute, because I think if you're using pivotal hashtags that are connecting to the community, so like I tell the church here, we shouldn't just be advertising and hashtagging churches. We should hashtag the schools. We should hashtag the school systems. We should hashtag businesses. I tell people all the time when I create hashtag systems, hashtags are not copyrighted. They're not anybody's property. They're not intellectual property. They don't own them. They can't tell you to not use them. And that's the great thing about hashtags, is that you can break into any type of systems that you see other people using. And so I even use some wedding hashtags, funny enough, on our church's page. And that way, some of those wedding venues that people are looking up, then they see the church. And so I, in my opinion, think that right now we should be doing that in order to reach out into the community beyond where the church is sitting. So.
No, I love that idea. I think that's really true. I've encouraged churches in the past too to like just get out in your community and do like some reviews of different businesses, like or just be really positive on the internet, because the truth is the internet's full of negativity, and Jesus called us to be salt and light, right? And how can we spread kindness on the internet, right? Like I think the church can lead the way in showing other people how they should be acting on the internet.
And if we are the different person, like I tell people this all the time too, if we're setting the different standards from versus what is on there, the conspiracy theories, there's so much, the negativity.
Conspiracy theories.
Yeah. I mean, like if we're different from all of that, no matter what business we're running, then we're going to stand out. We're going to stand out in that mess, and it's going to be very much a grab to people. And so I think that's where that authenticity comes in, inside of your church, like showing who you authentically are and who your staff authentically is, and anybody else, your volunteers. So I think that's an important pivotal part to it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that figuring out like that voice though of like how you want to do this is probably the hardest part sometimes.
Oh yes, the voice.
Yeah. You have some thoughts there?
Oh man, so many, because I've ran so many different accounts now. I mean, I have ran the gamut. I've ran an account for Phi Mu fraternity, so that voice is completely different than running a church social media platform. And so you definitely want to get
established voice guidelines.
Well, I do personally. So I sit down and I get them to give me some keywords. Anytime I run an account, they have to give me some sentences. I listen, especially if it's a church, I like to listen to the pastor and like his verbiage, like how he says certain words, like what is he saying? What does it sound like behind that? So I kind of take a lot of different content. I get them to write some things for me, tell me some vision statements, or even for a regular business that's not even in, the spiritual segment or the religious segment. I want to hear some words, like, what does this mean for you? And then I start nailing down what their voice should sound like. Because obviously a sorority, that was like, what's up, girls? I mean, it was always kind of like this hyped up feeling, which was great. And I can write for that. But at the same time, over here, this church, it has to be much more in the professional kind of mindset.
Hyped up. Is that what you're trying to say? They're not being hyped over there? Maybe they should be.
We hype up, but we just hype up in a little bit different way for the church. It's
That's
not so
fair.
Much, hey guys.
Hey y'all. What you doing today?
I do say hey y'all still, because we're in South Georgia down here, but
that's fair.
We try to
I'm from Alabama, so.
Oh yeah, girl. I lived in Alabama for 8 years.
Oh yeah. Now this is becoming a country podcast. Let's talk about that. Really, a whole
girl.
It's all about the narrative that we're telling about our lives.
Really is. It really is. Yeah.
I feel like I cut you off. So I'm sorry.
I love this. But yeah, I think keywords are just such a pivotal part of a brand voice. If you do not have a voice that you're speaking in, I think it's odd, and I think that's a hard part too. Like if you have multiple people running the platform, I have never had to run a platform with multiple people, thankfully. I'm a three and I want to do it all myself. I think we've already established that. So
because nobody can do it as good as I can. No. See, I finally gotten to the point where I'm like, oh, I realize that I can't do it as well as anybody else can.
I know.
And I just want to enable them to do it. I'm like, you're doing a great job. That's all I'm an enabler.
I love it. Yeah, I think it's so, if you do have multiple people running those platforms, because I mean, we know that there are churches like Passion, you got these churches that are running with multiple people, you have to have a brand voice. Otherwise, every time somebody writes a post, it sounds different. And so, creating those keywords and key phrases that you can use is really an important part of it, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so my next question is, you were at the beginning of your career. What's one thing that you wish you knew about church comms when you were starting out?
This has become a little bit of a soapbox for me too in the church comms world. I wish that I knew fully how to brand. I wish I knew how to. I know this now, and so looking back, I'm like, this would have been such an important piece of the puzzle to know early on, was how to create a brand for them. A lot of times churches think they don't need that because they're a church. They just think that, we're a church, that's our brand. That's all that needs to be. And so I wish early on I had the knowledge.
I wish it was that simple.
It really was.
I mean, it used to be, I guess.
It
but
did.
Like today, like the thing is, like they have it used to be like, I think people saw like 700 marketing messages a day, but today it's like over 30,000 messages a day or something. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but now you have to like really think about like how you're standing in their brain.
I mean, it's something as simple as the color scheme. So like when we came to First here, they kind of were already they were on the cusp of that. They were moving towards that. And so I was able to come in and really help and be hands-on with the people that were already kind of doing some of the creation and say, okay, now that we're here, let's create the brand so that when people see this color and they see this color, they think, hey, that looks like First. Because people do that for my photography business. I have people send me, Katie, the most random things and pictures, and they're like, this looks like Amy Cole. This looks like Amy Cole. Because I've created such a emphasis on those branding colors, just the simple colors. And so now they're doing that inside the church because we have used this color scheme over in everything we do. We are now using it, and everything in the church is being branded in this way. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. They think it's like, you're just trying to make us a corporation or a business. And really, that's not it at all. What we're trying to do is create identity in the community. Right, and so when people see that, when they see those colors and they see something with that name on it or that logo, it immediately triggers in their brain, hey, this is what this is. So early in my business, I was not great at that. I didn't realize that needed to be. And honestly, looking back, I mean, I'm 12 years into this. Like you said, I don't know if it was that pivotal in that moment. I don't know if maybe that's why I missed so much of it in that moment. But now it's the hands down the thing that I would tell a church to do. I mean, get on board. If you don't have a branding consultant, find one and get that moving so that then your church is recognized by colors and logos and things like that, and not just the church name. Everybody thinks it's all about the church name. It's not all about the church name.
Yeah. I mean, the church name's important, but it is not all about. And also, like, thinking about church names, it's so funny. Like, so I wrote a textbook on church communication. It comes out in August, and just a drop for my book. No,
I'll buy it, Katie.
Thanks. I appreciate it. If you're the only one, that's fine. Like that serves my narrative. I'm like, see, Amy bought it. We're good. And anyways, I spent a lot of time thinking about that chapter on. I wrote a chapter on branding, and there's a thing on naming, and like the history of naming a church is really interesting because we used to be so much about the nomenclature of denominations, and like your church, you're like would just name it whatever the denomination is in the city name, which honestly serves well for Google. honestly. Like
SEO, fantastic.
Yeah, it set itself up for SEO like great back in the 1800s. People were not expecting
when SEO was not even a thing.
Right. And now there's so many transformed churches or whatever, or like, Vision Church, that like you couldn't get SEO value to save your life.
I always call it adjective church. It's either adjective church or verb church.
Action noun, like, or action verb church. Yeah, who is it that does that? Shama? I don't know if you know.
Somebody, yeah.
Shama? He's in the group. Shama is, so it's okay.
Oh, good.
We can talk about Shama. Yeah, he's in the group. And anyway, I'm gonna send this to him afterwards. So he's gonna be like, okay, what the heck? Why don't you just talk about me? So anywho, gosh, yes. So
you were talking about the branding part of your book.
No, you're fine. My brain's all over the place. So branding, it's important. That's really all I have to say about it. I agree with you. I think colors are important. I think like having identity in the community is important.
Yeah.
Just because, and I mean, it's more than just a bumper sticker on the back of a car.
It is.
God bless. If you make bumper stickers for your church and you give them out, you better hope those people are doing the right thing in traffic.
Yes, you should.
I don't recommend that you do that as a church, honestly, because you might be putting a bad taste of Jesus in other people's house.
Especially in some areas. Let me tell you.
That's what I'm saying.
I used to live in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I used to live in Atlanta, and there is a very specific church that has a bumper sticker. I'm not going to name them. I'm pretty sure anybody that would know. And you're always like, oh, so you go to, And it was a very large church, so everybody had the bumper sticker.
Yeah, no,
like,
thank
no,
you.
That wasn't wise.
Maybe don't do that, maybe do another thing to identify yourself. But yeah, maybe not bumper stickers. I feel like the only time I'm violent is in the car. Like that's where Katie's rage really comes out. Everywhere else I'm like a super nice person. The car, it's just Katie's rage. It's fine. Like,
not good branding, Katie. Not good branding.
Now we're getting into counseling. I don't have any bumper stickers on my car. There's nothing that would tell you this is Katie Allred. Okay, so I mean, you're not catching me out on the streets or anything.
Good. That's good.
Yeah, thank you. I've been working on my personal branding. Okay, so all right, where do you think church communication's going?
Woo. So I have this whole thing. A lot of people, I think, church communication is going to, like online church. And I think that there's a place for that, because I definitely think we have people that still need those, those avenues. But I think that a lot of people are wanting to come back in the doors. I think, in my opinion, what I see is people wanting to come back. They've been lonely. They have been scared. They've been fearful. They're tired of doing life alone. They're tired of being cooped up. So while I still think that an online platform, as far as, your worship service and things like that go, I think that's very pivotal and important still in the life of the church. I think we need to be doing more inside the doors. So the authenticity, I would love to see us be more authentic in our postings, telling, like you said, those real life stories. That is where I see it going, because people want to know they're not alone. People want to know the stories of people that have struggled before them. I know that sounds crazy to say out loud, but I know that to be true in my own life. For my personal brand and my personal business, when I share a story about something that's happened in my life and the way that God has molded me, because I'm very, very much, spiritually who I am in my real life, even on my business page, people gravitate towards that. They want to know that somebody's walked it. And so I think that I see the church world going into that more of an authenticity, kind of posting way. And I'm here for it. I think it's just going to be a huge impact to church. Right? It's that's a whole other soapbox I can get on, but it is time. It is time for us to be real. I get really sick of the, the spiritual, verbiage. And I'm like, quit quoting a scripture and then the next post, being judgmental on social media. Like, you just can't do that, because people, if the Bible talks about fruit, and I know this is veering away, we might have a little Bible lesson here now.
It's okay. You're here to preach and I'm here for it.
If the Bible talks about fruit and how we are to live out those fruits in our lives, and if we are doing these things on social media to where we are detracting people from the call of Christ, then we have bigger issues than just church communication.
We have to snap.
Yeah, we have. To me, that is a pivotal thing in the church right now, that we get online and we bash and we judge and we're doing all these things, but that's not our call. That is not God's call for us. And so I think that's where the church has got a pivotal role right now in the future, especially with all of the things going on in our world. It is our time to shine. If we do it the right way, we will. If we do it the wrong way, I think it's going to greatly affect, lives actually for the kingdom. And that part really, really bothers me, is that if we don't get this right, what does that mean overall? And it means a great deal.
No, I have a lot of thoughts. One, if you didn't know, I had a lot of thoughts around the same subject. One, immediately I thought about that quote, like, vulnerability is power, by Brené Brown, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And the church for years was so good at harnessing this power. And somewhere in like the 80s and 90s, we were like, let's put on a good face and our best dress, and we are going to be the perfect people of God.
I grew up in that era, and trust me, that is what it was.
Me too. Yeah, me too. I've been the perfect child. It is exhausting, because I am an Enneagram 3. So I've been that perfect child, and I'm like realizing now that like there's a lot of beauty in imperfection, and like sharing, what God has called me to, but also like all the things that, I have done or have gone through that are important for realizing. I think too, it's training your people about the internet just as much as it is the church doing it.
Absolutely.
Like, I think it's really important for the page and, Instagram and all those things to be sharing this. But also I think it's important for the people to understand that their witness doesn't end when they open the computer or like they start scrolling on their phone. Like, you're like, all of a sudden, I feel like people just think their witness is over once they start posting on Instagram or something.
And and the sad part is you're like, this is where people see you the most. Look at your friends. If you have 2,000, there are people that I know that have 2,000 something friends on Facebook.
Yeah, I do.
And they are posting extremely crazy. I'm like, guys,
viral stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, your reach is 2,000. And then if you think about your reach, if you were to have one friend and they had one friend and they shared, think about the reach that you're going beyond. Why would we be anything but light? Why would we be anything but light in a dark world? Your salvation doesn't stop when you become a keyboard warrior. I can't express that enough. I just don't. I don't enjoy that. I think that it's such an important part.
Yeah.
And your witness is on trial there. Your witness, your faith is on trial every single day that you're on social media. And so I think it's very important that not only the church be that, but the people inside. And honestly, Katie, I think there needs to be some type of education in that field. I think it's, I think the pastors have a role. I think people that understand it have a role. But I think collectively, we as a body, we have a role to be light beyond just leaving a church every Sunday morning. It's not a country club. This is a church. And so you should leave changed. If you walk out the door, you should leave changed. And so the change should spill out even on social media. This might be a little bit of a soapbox for me. Can you tell?
I know. Are we going to write a book now?
Katie, I have like 3 books right now going on my computer.
Okay. Are we writing a book? Okay, great. Like, let's do it.
For it. I will totally. write a book with you about this. I just think it's it's a part that we're missing. I mean, I think we are missing the mark right there. And it's, I don't think we will see the full effect of how we've missed this mark for about 20 years.
I think so too. I agree. 20 years, I think we'll see what is unfolded because we were so negative on the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're already seeing what has unfolded because Christians were negative on the internet.
Sure.
But man, come on, guys, get it together. No, I'm just kidding. Everybody listen to this, probably agreeing with us.
Everybody that's gonna listen to the podcast is gonna be like, yes, girl.
We're preaching to the choir. I know that we're preaching to the choir, but like, I don't know, maybe share this with a friend. And then that friend's
I'm gonna share it.
Are you talking to me? Oh no, that's terrible.
Oh gosh, Katie, so many words.
I'm just here to convict. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I lead into freedom, grace, love.
Yes, all about grace around here. That's how we live in this house.
Yeah, like, I mean, there's a lot of grace. I like to think that grace is abundant. Okay, so my next question, which is normally like a funny question, and now I'm like gonna change it. It's normally like, would you keep your website or your bulletin? Everybody says website, and so I'm gonna ask you a totally different question, and I just came up with it off the top of my head. So excuse me, and enjoy whatever this might be. Okay, so you can only have one font, and it is either Papyrus or Comic Sans.
Okay. The first answer that I want to give you is neither. But the second one is Papyrus, because there ain't no way Comic Sans. No way. Comic Sans. I don't get judgmental about many things.
Body copy and everything. Papyrus.
I don't get judgmental about many things, but I do about Comic Sans.
Okay, all right, good to know. So you're that person who's going in and deleting the Comic Sans off the children's ministry's computers.
Oh my gosh, Katie, I can't even tell these stories because I'm scared of who will listen.
Okay, well, all right. Well, everybody has that story though. So like, I know that everybody listening, because I have a story, like, I understand. Or like when
why is it always the children's minister?
I don't know, like why? Because I think there's a special course in seminary called Comic Sans 101. And it's where they just make everything in Comic Sans, and they're like, this is beautiful. And like, they really come to get to know it. And they don't ever think there's more fonts on the internet you can download for free. They don't know about that. Like, that's not part of the seminary education. It's just Comic Sans 101.
Comic Sans, Katie, I think they look at it and go, oh, that looks like a kid. So I'll use that.
Right. Yeah. Right.
No.
Which, I mean, sure, it does. But also, what are we? An Arby's? No, I'm just kidding.
An Arby's.
It's the first thing that came to mind. Doesn't make any sense.
Now I'm going to go look up what Arby's is, because now I'm curious.
It's not bad at all. I just wanted to say.
Listen, Jess, our friend, has been recreating logos. She's been recreating logos recently with different fonts to show like how you can upscale them. And I'm like, I am here for this trend. Let's upscale logos.
Really fun. If you don't follow Jess on TikTok or Instagram, you should be following her and listening to all that. It's just creatives, right? We're just like dropping.
Creatives. Yeah. We're just name Jess dropping now.
Yeah, just like Jess, follow Jess. She's in the group. You can tag her if you have questions. Okay, so my last question is, you're alone on a deserted island with only one CCM album to keep you company. What is it?
Man, this is okay. I'm a musician, Katie. You know this, like worship pastor home.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go Amy Grant.
Okay. Which Amy Grant album though? It's the question.
Baby.
The Baby album. not even CCM related hardly. It's like CCM adjacent.
I know. I think that's when I realized my rebellion against the church.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. I didn't even know Christian music existed until I was like a teenager. So
I know.
I was like, oh,
me
I thought it was just
either.
hymns. I was like, oh, I thought we just had hymns.
Listen, I could get on a soapbox about that too, because like people laugh all the time and they're like, I do love hymns. Okay, so but that for some reason people think I don't. But I always get tickled because I'm like, that's all I got to listen to as a child. I don't want to listen to that anymore. Like that's just my personal opinion. And people get tickled about that. And I'm like, I think it's because as a child, that's all I was allowed to listen to.
Okay.
That and Southern gospel.
That's it.
Southern gospel. See, I didn't even know
we had very different childhoods now, I can tell.
I didn't even know who Bon Jovi was until I got married.
Oh, see, I knew that. Like, I knew all, like, secular music. Like, I was well scripted in the world of oldies and classic rock.
No, I was a independent Baptist pastor's kid.
Okay, wow. That
tells you anything. Legalism aplenty.
Oh my gosh, so much trauma. Well, let's talk about that next time.
We'll go into the counseling session on the next podcast.
That's fine. Yeah, that's good.
But Amy Grant would be it because that was my first. I think that was my first. It gives me a lot of joy. It was my first time really seeing that there was a whole other world out there that was not just. I do love me some Stephen Curtis Chapman too, though. I'll give him a shout out. So.
Yeah, sure. Well, did you know the Baby Baby song wasn't written about like a significant other, but about her child? I know, isn't that so sweet? When
I think it's so sweet.
I was like, okay, Amy Grant, like how sweet are you? Anyways, I like had always thought like, oh, this is about like, you know, somebody falling in love. But no, I mean it is about somebody falling in love with their child. Yeah.
And you know us, we just twisted it and threw it away.
We were like, let's throw all context out the window. Yeah, good times. I heard Amy actually speak about that at a church event, which was really random. That's how I found out the meaning of that song.
I was like, Katie, you have done some research on Amy Grant. I'm impressed. Is that your next book, Amy Grant and the Baby Baby era?
Yeah, like that's it. Honestly, that's all I know. That's all I know about Amy Grant. That's my Amy Grant knowledge stops. Like that's the beginning and end.
I love it. Just to be clear, I do love current music. I'm not just a Stephen. I listen to Charity Gale. We listen to everybody.
No 80s. Just 80s Christian pop. I'm just kidding. That's it. That's it. That's fair. No, I was at 90s. I don't know. I'm dating it. I don't even know. I think it was the early 90s, I guess. Yeah.
What's yours?
Oh. No.
Yeah. Let's flip the script. I'm going to interview you now.
No, that's a terrible idea. No, I feel like somebody did ask me, and I think if I was alone on a deserted island, I'll go back to my first album that I ever purchased that was Christian, when I figured out that Christian music existed, and it was The Beautiful Letdown by Switchfoot.
Wow. That's actually a really good one.
Yeah, it was one of my favorites. I could still listen to it.
You were a rocker a little bit there. Katie.
I liked Fuel and I listened to a lot of like really Foo Fighters or something. I don't know, like in 6th grade, that was me. So yeah, in 7th grade when I found out Switchfoot existed, I was like,
you were like, they're Christian?
I think it was because of A Walk to Remember.
Oh yes.
A Walk to Remember had just come out. I'm dating myself by saying how old I was in 2003, but like it just come out around that time-ish.
Yeah.
And then Jars of Clay was in there too, and Switchfoot was in there, and I was like, oh, like I had no idea this whole genre of music existed. Because I mean I heard hymns at church, and then my parents listened to just like popular music, you know.
Sure.
But I didn't know like Christian music existed, or when I knew of it, I felt like it was very lame.
Yeah. You're like, this is so cheesy.
I was like, this is really lame. And then Switchfoot like really converted me into listening to Christian music.
I love that. I'm a little jealous you got to listen to other things in your childhood. I did not.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry that
God.
happened to you. That sounds like a rough time.
I'm in counseling still today, and that's not a joke. And I still often bring that subject up.
Yeah, you're like
I just don't understand. Like, why could I not wear a bathing suit when I was a kid?
Oh my gosh, yeah, no. What's so funny is that so I didn't have that, right? And this is totally off subject. Everyone's like, okay, they're not even talking about communications anymore, but it's fine. They can have what they have. But here's the thing, I had a very free childhood. My parents were very laissez-faire.
I love
about everything. They were older. I mean, not much older, but they were in their 30s when they had children.
Yeah.
And they weren't legalists by any means of the imagination. I didn't have any rules. I was never punished. Because my parents, that's because my mom would say, you would punish yourself more than I could ever punish you, because I would just go in my room and cry about something that for days.
I love it.
So I was beating myself up over, ridiculous. I accidentally took an eraser or something from the library, and I'd be beating myself up for days about it or something. Mom was like, I couldn't punish you. What would be the point? And so, anyways, but I think where was I going with this other than to say, oh yeah, so I put myself in, so I went to church every time the doors were open. Not because my parents forced me to, but because I wanted it. Yeah. And I think I love the structure that church gave me, and I love the rules that it gave me, because I wasn't getting tons of rules at home. That's not a bad thing. I think, I mean, I don't know. There was no reason that I craved rules more than I just wanted them.
No, you just like the structure. Child. I mean, I think that's our personality. We like to know what's going to happen and how it's going to happen. Yeah.
Yes. And I really appreciate organization, I guess. I don't know. So I was like, ooh, organized religions for me.
I love that we got you on the organized part.
Yeah, that was it. I was like, I love this. I'm going to be at the budget meetings on Sunday nights. I'm 12, and I'm going to speak into those line items.
Yeah. Excuse me, this line item, this is not balanced out.
Why are we spending so much money on paper towels? No, I'm just kidding. Whatever. I was the worst child for all the kids, but I was personally discipled, which is great. And I think I wanted to be a compliant Christian for a long time. Anyways, that's besides the point of this podcast. But
I think it makes you I think honestly, if we were going to take it back, I'm serious. I think it's why you're so good at what you do now. I think because you have watched it and you have grown through it and you have been so attentive to it. I think that's why you're so good at what you do in this line of work. It's because you've been so active in it for so long, but also very attentive to what has been going on. And so it made you very aware very early. And so it set you up. I mean, that was a God thing, Katie. It set you up perfectly for this communications world. I think it really did. I'm not just saying that.
Speaking to my heart.
I think God knew long before you ever did that that's why he was putting you in those types of places on those types of days. When every other kid was outside playing on the playground, you were in there at the budget meetings.
And I was like, gotta hit that budget meeting up right now. My parents were business owners, so I feel like, I don't know, numbers, business comes to me. I don't know, but yes. Quite the odd journey I've taken here. Thank you for speaking that over me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm here for it.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so if people want to connect with you on the internet, how can they do that? How can they follow you? Everything?
Yeah. If they want to connect with me personally on the internet, it's at Amy Cole Photography. I do most of my real life posting and stuff like that there, especially on stories. And then my social media strategy business is at Amy Cole Creative. And then the church that I run is at First Brunswick GA. And so they could see kind of a little bit of, I run other ones, but that's really the only one right now that I'm going to put out there for the moment while we're working on other.
While you're working on other things.
You know what I mean? We gotta get some stuff cleaned up in the other ones.
Yeah. Well, we talked about that. It's a journey.
It's a journey.
And it takes some time.
I'm learning that. Social media is always a journey, and it takes a little while to get the ship turned the right way.
It does not happen overnight. It
doesn't. So that's a good word. It does not happen overnight.
That's what we're ending, everybody. Like, here's your advice. Like, communication is a journey. It does not happen overnight. Like, it's okay. You're taking some time with it.
Yeah, choose one thing. That would be my last statement. Choose one thing that's really important and really immediate need, and go with that first and get that ship turned, and then slowly start implementing other things as you go.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Amy, for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Katie. I had fun with you.
Yeah, me too. Same. And everybody, you can always review the podcast if you enjoyed this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to it. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Church Communications Podcast. If you want to learn more, join over 30,000 church leaders in our Facebook group at churchcommunications.com/group. If you liked today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It's the most impactful way you can help us reach more church leaders and equip them to better communicate for the church. Finally, don't forget to check out our website at churchcommunications.com. Thanks for listening.